store-bought lumber anymore is just garbage. Like, you can't even find any pieces that don't have cups or bows or dog legs or gigantic knots in them. So today, what we're gonna do, because I have some stuff to build, my wife wants some raised beds at the house. Today, I'm gonna be milling my own lumber. And I'm gonna be using this tree to do so. Now, I don't have a sawmill. I don't even have any of those Alaskan mill chainsaw attachments. All I have is like mason line, chalk line, and chainsaw. And that's exactly what we're gonna use to mill some pretty decent boards out of this oak log right here. Now, before we get into that, remember the Barbara O'Neill event. It's linked down below. It's gonna be in March. Can't wait to see you guys there. We're gonna learn how to heal ourselves without the use of pharmaceuticals. So there's gonna be a lot of awesome other speakers there as well. My parents are gonna be there. Mike over at Permaculture's farm. Mike, the Fit Farmer, is gonna be there. Yeah, Jax, Barbara O'Neill, all kinds of people. It's gonna be fun. Can't wait to see you guys there. Also, I'm gonna be speaking at Midwest Preparedness Project in May. That will be linked down as well. The admission is free, if you didn't know. The admission to the Midwest Preparedness Project is free. So, can't wait to see you guys there. If you guys live in Kansas or Missouri or any of the surrounding states of Kansas, this is like a week-long prepper event / homesteading / permaculture event. Come check it out. I'll be teaching there. So will a bunch of other awesome people. Joel Salatin will be there. In fact, I think I teach right before Joel Salatin. So I have to make sure I don't go over time on that one. The first step is to yank this log into an area that's going to be a little bit easier to work. Right now it's still a full tree. Like, I just dropped the tree. I haven't done any trimming on it. I'm going to trim it down a little bit because it is a big tree to be just pulling out with this truck. So I'm going to trim it down a little bit, and then I'm going to yank the log out, and then we'll move from there. All right, so this about here is where I'm going to trim it, and it still leaves me like a fairly long log. Like, this is way longer than I need. In fact, I think I'm doing, 10-foot boards, because I've already milled a few, but I'm doing 10-foot boards and 4-foot boards, because those are the increments. Those are going to be the dimensions of the raised beds once I start building those. But yeah, before we cut this, remember, safety third. Put your chainsaw glasses on. Now I have a good open attachment point, and I'm going to attach this tow rope along with this clevis, and then I'm going to attach the other end to the truck and yank this out. A little side note, I don't know if anybody's heard that song, Man on a Buffalo, but that has been playing in my head since Wednesday. Today's Friday. Man on a buffalo. I want 10-foot boards and 4-foot boards. So I'm going to measure the overall length of this log, and I'm going to chop it down to size because there is a dog leg over on that end. So right here is 10 feet, and I'm giving it some slop too. It's like 10 feet 2 inches. So that way I can come back, before I start building the raised beds, I can come back with a skill saw and a square and square up the ends, which will make the construction part a little bit easier. The dog leg seems to begin just past this knot right here. So I'll go to about here, and then over on this other section, so I'll cut it off before I go to that. I'll cut it off about right here, which will give me over 10 feet and some slop. And then I can come over to this section right here, and I can get my 4-foot board out of this section, and I can skip this clump of knots right here. So that's exactly what I'll do. Since it is so muddy and rocky out, like that'll dull a chainsaw in no time. So I have noticed that if I can debark this part first and then do my cuts, my chainsaw will last a little bit longer. So that's what I'm gonna do that first. I'm gonna start debarking this with my handy dandy draw knife, and then I'll go ahead and start laying out my lines and milling. So here is my handy dandy draw knife, and there's 2 different ways to use the draw knife. You see that it's flat on this side, and then there's a bevel on this side. If I'm just trying to take off like thin strips, so like if I'm carving something, then I'll use the flat side. But if I'm trying to get down and remove a lot of material, then I'll do bevel side down. And then I'll just start pulling it. And you can actually push with this too. Takes a little bit of practice, but it's possible. Now, I also dropped this tree in winter, which is going to make getting this bark off a little bit more difficult. Also, this thing could definitely use a sharpen. Once you get it started though, a little bit easier after that. And if you missed it, this tool is called a draw knife. This one I actually got at Northern Tool. There are definitely better ones to get, and there's definitely worse ones to get. So if you use it all the time, then I would spend the money to get a good one. If you don't, then just get the one at Northern Tool. All right, so now that that is up on the stand, it is debarked. Now I'm gonna secure it in place so that way it's not like rolling around on me while I'm trying to mill, because that will make some pretty wavy lines. And remember, the goal is to make this better than what I find at the lumber yard. And another cool benefit of doing this is that now I have like raised beds made out of oak logs instead of that crappy pine that they sell and whatnot. Shouldn't move too much. It might wiggle a little bit, but that's okay. We just wanted to stop it from moving, like rolling away on me. Alrighty, so now it's time to set up the string line, which is gonna act as like a place to measure off of, but also like my chainsaw guide. So I'm thinking these boards will be about 2 inches in thickness. So I'm gonna come over to this end and I'm gonna pick the tallest point on this log, which looks to be about right here. And I'm gonna go all the way to the edge and I'm gonna tack that nail in. That's a little bit more of a tack, more than a tack, but it'll be all right. And I'm gonna go down to this end, tack in a nail, and then tie off the mason line. And now I'm gonna pick the tallest point on this end, tack in a nail, and then I'm gonna wrap my string line around this. So what I'm gonna do is just use my chainsaw and follow along this line as best as I can without cutting my line. And then that way I have a channel that's going to take into account the width of this chain right here. Now I want to tell you this before I start up the chainsaw and you guys can't hear me. So a lot of people in the videos and stuff, you see them using the entire length of this chainsaw to actually mill the board. Well, this chain right here is not a ripping chain. So it's not really meant to be cutting with the grain. It's meant to be cutting against the grain. So the angle of the teeth are a little bit different, all that type of stuff. I believe it's more of an obtuse angle than it is acute. And I think the ripping chains are a little bit more acute. So what I'm gonna do is and that's just a lot of friction to be on this chain, and it's not meant for that. So what I'm gonna do is use just the tip of my chainsaw. Just focus it on like maybe 2 teeth at a time, and this chainsaw will end up performing better than the typical Alaskan mills that you see, where it's just like mounted sideways and the entire, width of that, all those teeth are just in contact. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teeth are gonna be engaged on cutting this log, which is gonna be just a nightmare. It's gonna go super slow. It's gonna dull these teeth. Instead, what I'm gonna do is just use 2 teeth at a time and use the tip of my chainsaw. And I'm gonna try to go as straight as possible. It's all right if it's not perfect. Again, these are raised beds, but I'm gonna try to get as close as I can to be, making perfect boards. And again, all I'm doing on this first part, is just getting a channel to measure off of. So if I have a 4-inch wide board, I'm cutting it down the middle. Well, 2 seconds in and I already cut my string. I'm gonna try the chalk line. Here's my chalk line, which is super thick on this end, but as you go down, you can still see it, but I'm gonna have like an imaginary line from here to there. So I'm gonna do the best I can. I am gonna go ahead and remove the nails so that way I'm not tearing up my teeth. Alrighty, so here is my channel, and it got a little off here on the coming back part, like when I was dragging it back. The chain caught and it got a little off there, so I won't measure off that, but it doesn't mean the board is ruined. But I've got this channel all the way down. So now I'm gonna measure, because the width of the bar is about it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. So I'm gonna measure 2 1/4 inches to either side, and I'm gonna tack this in. And then I'm gonna do 2 1/4 inches to the other side as well, and tack that in. Now I could just go measure 2 inches to the side and then cut on the outside of that line, but I'm trying to follow that line like dead nuts, so that way it's just easier to do it that way for me. So 2 inches, 2 1/4 inches this way, 2 1/4 inches this way, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm gonna lay out my chalk line. Now, make sure you brush off any of the sawdust that you have, so that way your chalk line isn't getting on the sawdust. Because that'll just, your line will go away as soon as the wind blows, which the wind is blowing like crazy today. Now, some of you might be wondering, like, hey man, why don't you just lay out all your lines at once? Instead of like cutting, stopping, laying out more lines, cutting, stopping, laying out more lines. And that's because I tried that before, and I noticed that the lines slowly disappear with all the interaction with the sawdust and the vibration and all that type of stuff. This is the blue chalk line, so it's not nearly as permanent as like red or something like that. And it just doesn't seem to last very long. And now I'm going to repeat the process. Measure 2 inches this way, get another board, and then another 2 1/4 inches. I'm going to measure this way and get another board. And after that, I'll start milling all the way down, starting on the outside and working my way in. So that way these outside boards can keep this stable. And so if I start in the middle, it's going to split, and then I have to re-secure it and all that stuff. But if I start on the outside, then it'll be kept together with the boards, the wedges that I put in on the side, and I can just mill all the way through. Another thing I could do is actually leave one end intact until the very end, and then I could go ahead and separate them and, call it good that way. Alrighty, so here's the moment of truth. I'm gonna cut these last couple pieces. This end side, that already kind of fell off here. You can see it here, this plank right here. The end cuts, that already fell off. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4 solid boards, and then 2 end pieces. This end piece over here could actually be used for something. It seems pretty, yeah, it seems pretty thick throughout, kind of thin on the inside, but these 4 boards right here should all be pretty good. And I don't think I did too bad on keeping them straight. They seem pretty doggone straight. I've noticed that as you're doing it, that you get pretty straight lines if you do like this swinging motion throughout. And then there were a couple of times where the side kind of caught on one of the boards, and there's like some grooves that are in the sides. It just, it is what it is. It's chainsaw cut or chainsaw milled lumber. But yeah, if you do this swinging motion, you seem to be pretty good. And try to focus on using just the tip. Whenever you use the full length of it, then it starts to bog down and stuff like that. But yeah, I have to cut these ends off right here, and then we'll have some full-blown boards. And if you're curious about where I got this information from, it was from this crazy Russian dude called Adovko Makes, I think. He's in the Russian forests, and he's building a log cabin with a chainsaw, and I think that's about it. But yeah, he used to be a lawyer apparently, and then he got a wild hair and then wanted to do his own thing with the chainsaw in the forest. He's Russian, so, it is what it is. But yeah, that's where I got a lot of this information. He actually has a self-propelled version of this where it's like he sets up the chainsaw and then it just kind of pulls its way through, like it slides down the log. I'd be curious to try something like that out. It's just, that's a full-blown setup. This was like, all I have is a chainsaw and some string and calling it good. I mean, this took like a couple hours. I mean, it also takes more extra time doing the video, like filming the actual video. But all of this so far took like a couple hours. So just keep that in mind. It's not a quick process. And if I had a different chain on it, like that ripping chain, I'm sure that would speed things up quite a bit. So far, I have not touched up the chain or sharpened it at all or swapped out chains since starting this little project. But I'm definitely telling a difference between the beginning and now. Like this thing is on its last leg before it needs to get sharpened again. So there's that, but I should have some pretty neat boards after this. All right, without any more messing around, let's go ahead and get this end cut off. Now over here are some of the boards that I've already milled up. Here's my 4-foot sections right here. You got 2 of them right here, and they're not going to stay here long. If I leave them here long, then they're going to start bowing out. And then these are the end cuts that I had. And then here's some of the 10-foot sections that I've already done. Now, let's look at what I just did. All righty. Here's one board, and that is definitely longer than 10 feet. There's one board. Here's 2 board. Ugh, this stuff is definitely still wet. Here's the second one. Not too bad. This really isn't that bad. And like, I know it's not done drying yet, but that's so much straighter than what you find at the store. Like a lot straighter than what you find at the store. And then here's my 3rd board. Like here, check this out. I don't know if you guys can tell, but that's not too bad. Look at that. That's not too bad at all. And then the 4th board. Y'all check straightness for me. How's that look? All right, well, I'm gonna turn the truck around and get it loaded up with the lumber that I have and bring it to the house. So hopefully this was, if nothing else, this was interesting to you guys. Remember, we got that health festival with Barbara O'Neill. That's linked down below. And then we also have Midwest Preparedness. The health festival is in March. The Midwest Preparedness Festival is in May. Can't wait to see you guys at both festivals. A little fun fact, if you didn't know this, I actually grew up mostly in Kansas. So yeah, it's a little, I haven't been back since the first time I moved to Texas. So it'll be fun to check out Kansas, see if anything's changed. Can't wait to see you guys there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Also, if you need consultations, hit up the email down below. Until next time, we'll see you.